Hey, what's up everybody? Tommy Meyer here. Today I'm going to show you how to roast on the Behmor 1600. The Behmor is an excellent home roaster, and at only $400 you really get incredible bang for your buck. I wouldn't recommend using it as a commercial roaster though. It's not because you can't get professional quality coffee off of it. You can. I'm about to show you how to do that. It's more that if you're going to be roasting anything more than a few pounds a week, it's just not practical. It takes too friggin' long. I used this as a commercial roaster for years, and even with all the hacks I used and back-to-back roasts, which you're not supposed to do, 1,000 different things to avoid the warranty, the quickest I was able to roast is about a pound an hour. Even though the Behmor says it can roast up to a pound at a time, it really maxes out around a half pound, to be honest, if you want to get the first crack in any reasonable amount of time. So between that and the really long cooling cycle, which it needs to go through after each roast, it just takes too long, man. I found the ideal batch size to be about 200 grams. You can get away with roasting upwards of 250 with a couple of hacks, such as tilting the roaster back so that the beans are closer to the heating element, or putting tin foil around the chaff collector. Those are warranty voiding hacks, by the way, in case you were wondering. But for this tutorial, we're going to stick with what I've found to be the ideal batch size, 200 grams. So, to get started, like with any other roaster, you're going to preheat it. Do that by pressing half pound and start. And you're going to preheat it to 230 degrees. And you do so by running 2 cycles of 1:45. So let it count down. You can't see the numbers here because of the sun, but this is counting down from 12. When it hits 10:15, stop it and do another heating cycle. And the reason we do that is because after about 2 minutes of roasting, the roaster will need to go through an entire cooling cycle before it lets you roast again, so we don't want that to happen because it takes long enough as it is, right? Also, I preheat with the drum and the chaff collector outside the roaster, and that's mainly because in the time that it takes me to take them out, open the drum, pour in the beans, put them back in, close the door, even if I do so without burning myself, and that's a big if, I find that any temperature stability that I would have had is long gone. In fact, I've found I get greater temperature stability by roasting with them outside. Also, I can use this preheat time to my advantage by weighing my beans and putting them in the old drum. Now, one thing that I have noticed is that the Behmor is very susceptible to voltage changes and changes in the ambient temperature. So if you have a variac and a kilowatt, I definitely recommend using them with the Behmor. And obviously, I always recommend roasting in an environment with a stable temperature. But if you can't do these things, the amount of time that it takes to get to 230 degrees should give you a good idea of how quickly your roaster is going to be roasting for that session. And then you can kind of adjust accordingly. Once it hits 230 degrees, hit off and add your drum and chaff collector. I've found that the drum sometimes falls out during the roast, so make sure it's in there good. I usually put it in the right side first, and then you have to like drape it over the thing on the left there. It's got like a little lip. Pretty annoying. And this time, sometimes it's difficult to get into. You gotta kind of force it. Half pound, start. Then I hit P5 to put it into manual mode, and D to increase the speed of the drum. Now that last part is optional. To be honest, I don't remember why I started increasing drum speed. I just do, but that's the way I've been doing it, so that's the way I'm going to show you. When you're in manual mode, the P buttons, P1 through 5, they all stand for power. So P5 is 100%, P4 75, P3 50, P2 25, P1 0%. At 5 minutes in, the exhaust fan will kick on. This works sort of like increasing airflow, which a lot of roasters recommend you do around this time in the roast. So this is one of those instances where the Behmor kind of does your work for you. I'll also record the temperature at that time, the B temp. Just use that as your first roast marker to see how your roast is progressing. At this point, it's a good time to talk about the two different temperature gauges. B is the wall temperature. It's the temperature on the wall of the Behmor, and A is the temperature of the exhaust fan. That's not going to kick on until the exhaust fan kicks on, so that's pretty much useless until about 5 minutes in. But near the end of the roast, once the A temp surpasses the B temp, that's the temp that I used, so it's not completely useless. About 30 seconds before I expect to hit first crack, I'll hit P3. I should have built enough momentum during the roast to take me all the way to the end now. So now comes the messy part. Now there's a couple of options based on how messy you want to be. I'm going to show you the less messy option. When you've reached your preferred roast level and drop temp, you're going to hit off. Get a towel so you don't burn yourself. Take out the colander, chaff collector. Take out the chaff collector, take out the drum, pour your beans without burning yourself into a little colander like this guy. Close the door, hit cool, and then to cool your beans, bruh. You can just move them back and forth between the colanders. And I know what you're thinking, those beans don't look like they're done. They're not. I messed up. But with the magic of movies, I get to do this scene before the scene's in the middle. Pretty cool. Also, you can use the vacuum. Vacuum up some of that grossness. The other method would be to, once you hit your desired temperature, just open the door. Take out the chaff collector, but leave the drum in. Chaff's gonna go fly everywhere. You can use the vacuum here to suck some of it up. Also, this handy brush that comes with the Behmor, you can brush some of it out. The vacuum also helps to cool it quicker, so if you're doing back-to-back roasts, this is the method that I would recommend you choose. Does make a mess, so if you're roasting inside and your roommates aren't cool with, you know, coffee skin getting everywhere, then I'd recommend the first method. You can also, so at 7 minutes, when there's 7 minutes left in the cooling cycle, I like to take the drum out and pour the beans into a colander or into some sort of vessel, and then I'll close the door so that the roaster kind of cools itself. And then if you do that, it should be ready to go by the time the cooling cycle ends again. Should. Again, you're voiding the warranty. And that's it. You got yourself some delicious coffee. I would leave the beans uncovered for the first day or so. The first 24 hours after roasting, the beans give off a lot of CO2, so you gotta let them rest. They usually peak somewhere around a week, depending on the beans, and they can last up to a month or so if they're sealed properly, which is in a cool, dark place, sealed airtight. Behmor does suggest that every 5 roasts you do a cleaning cycle, which is just running a quarter-pound roast cycle with no beans in there, so just like a dry burn. And then you can get a non-corrosive cleaner like Simple Green or something and just wipe the insides. And that's it. If you follow those rules, you should have delicious coffee, and this Behmor should last you forever, and you shouldn't have a warranty. So if it breaks, you're fucked. Perfect.